tonight's news edition, Jordan marks Army Day and the Great Revolt anniversary. The King tells a delegation of Mediterranean ombudsmen holding a conference in Amman that Jordan will enhance justice, rule of law, transparency, and the integrity system. And Syrian government forces mass around Aleppo after taking the key town of Qusayr. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Jordan marks the anniversary of Army Day and the Great Arab Revolt. On the National Day, Jordan reiterated their resolve to continue defending the kingdom and press for more achievements. His Majesty the King led a ceremony organized by the armed forces to mark the occasions. Hebatoum has the story.
In June 1916, as head of the Arab nationalists and in alliance with Britain and France, Sharif Hussein initiated the Great Arab Revolt against Ottoman rule. His sons, the Emirs Abdullah and Faisal, led the Arab forces with Emir Faisal's forces, liberating Damascus from Ottoman rule in 1918. At the end of the war, Arab forces controlled all of modern Jordan, most of the Arabian Peninsula, and much of southern Syria. Sharif Hussein's objective in undertaking the Great Arab Revolt was to establish a single independent and unified Arab state, stretching from Aleppo in Syria to Aden in Yemen, based on the ancient traditions and culture of the Arab people, the upholding of Islamic ideals, and the full protection and inclusion of ethnic religious minorities. Marking Army Day and the Great Arab Revolt anniversary, His Majesty King Abdullah, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, attended a celebration held by the armed forces at the Martyrs Monument. Upon arrival at the site, an artillery unit fired a 21-gun salute, welcoming the king as a brass band played the national anthem. The king, who was accompanied by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein, was received by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mash'al al-Zaban. His Majesty toured the monument, watered an olive tree, and signed the visitor's book. King Abdullah also decorated officers and members of the Armed Forces, Public Security Department, General Intelligence Department, and the Civil Defense Department, as well as injured military personnel, in recognition of their services and distinguished track records. The ceremony was attended by a number of royal family members, the Prime Minister, Senate President, Lower House Speaker, President of the Judicial Council, Royal Court Chief, and Directors of the Departments of Public Security, Civil Defense, and Gendarmerie. Hebatoum, for the news at 10.
His Majesty the King said Jordan will pursue its role of protecting Islamic and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem and support Arabs in the Holy City. He said in a meeting with Patriarch Theophilus III of Jerusalem that the kingdom would stand up to Israeli attempts to change the Arab identity of Jerusalem. King Abdullah warned that Israel's ongoing settlement building would scuttle any chance for peace and efforts to kickstart Palestinian-Israeli negotiations to realize the two-state solution. The Patriarch said Jordan had assumed the historic role of defending holy shrines in Jerusalem, referring to an agreement signed in March by the King and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, which reasserted the King's role as custodian of the holy sites. He also lauded the King's tireless efforts to achieve regional peace and prosperity and promote interfaith and cross-cultural dialogue. The King bestowed upon the Patriarch Jordan's Al-Nahda Medal of the First Order in recognition of his support of the Kingdom's role as custodian. His Majesty the King received a delegation representing the Association of Mediterranean Ombudsmen, which seeks to promote the values of democracy, rule of law, and enhance social peace in the Mediterranean region. His Majesty expressed his appreciation for selecting Jordan as the venue for the association's 7th annual conference entitled Towards a Better Treatment of Complaints Against the Administration. This, he said, is consistent with Jordan's keen interest to enhance justice, the rule of law, and transparency while developing the integrity system, public performance, and pursuing comprehensive reform. At the meeting, attended by President of the Ombudsman Bureau, Abdul-Ilah Al-Kurdi, King Abdullah stressed the importance of coordination among ombudsman bureaus in the Mediterranean to improve their performance and to exchange expertise and data. Members of the delegation praised the King's efforts in support of justice and human rights, in addition to progress the Kingdom had made in various areas. They noted that the establishment of an Ombudsman Bureau would enhance Jordan's reforms. Representing His Majesty the King, Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour opened the 7th meeting of the Association of Mediterranean Ombudsmen in Amman. Mansour said in opening remarks that its presence is a necessity for public administration, adding that ombudsman bureaus support both decision makers and those who lodge complaints when they are valid. He said the more citizens' confidence increases in the bureaus and other control and monitoring departments, the stronger their confidence is in the state and its institutions. With the development of information and communication technologies, Mansour told the meeting platforms are now available for all members of the public, and each individual has the right to express his opinion and criticize government management and its staff. He added there is an increasing conviction at the international level of the need to enhance good governance based on transparency, justice, equality, the rule of law, and accountability. President of the Ombudsman Bureau, Abdul-Ilah Al-Kurdi, said the Bureau was established in line with His Majesty's vision to have a control and monitoring department to achieve justice, transparency, and equality in public administration practices and decisions. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met President of the Pontifical Council for Social Communications, Archbishop Claudio Mariacelli, who is attending a conference entitled Arab Christians, Media in the Service of Justice, Peace, and Human Rights, which opened in Amman today. Mansour said Jordan is a model of coexistence between Muslims and Christians as it promotes interfaith dialogue, adding that Christianity is a basic component of the Levant. He spoke about His Majesty the King's efforts to bring about peace and stability in the region and safeguard holy sites in Jerusalem to enhance the Islamic and Christian presence in the city and prevent the eviction of its Arab inhabitants. Mansour also reviewed challenges posed to the Middle East, pointing to repercussions of the Syrian crisis on Jordan, which is hosting hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees. A royal decree has been issued promoting Director of the General Intelligence Department, Lieutenant General Faisal Shobaki, to the rank of General as of today. Also, a decree was issued promoting Director General of the Public Security Department, Lieutenant General Tawfiq Tawalbe, to General. Her Majesty Queen Rania met with representatives of different education sector stakeholders. They all shared with her the outcomes of the 2013 Teachers Conference held on Saturday and organized by the Queen Rania Teacher Academy. Entitled National and International Assessment of Students' Learning Strategies for Improving the Quality of Education in Jordan, the conference brought together 500 of Jordan's leading education practitioners, scholars, researchers, and policymakers. They discussed Jordan's results in international assessments of students' learning and associated implications. Her Majesty stressed the need to conduct regular assessments and evaluations to continuously improve the quality of education. The Queen stressed the need for urgent action, saying yesterday's methodologies may not meet today's learning requirements or the labor market needs. His Highness Prince Hassan bin Talal, chairman of the West Asia North Africa WANA Forum, expressed his views on the human sufferings taking place all over the world at a meeting today. During the inauguration of the 5th WANA Forum, which aimed to discuss achieving the human dignity of the uprooted, His Highness stressed the need to view the issues of those uprooted by establishing a comprehensive methodology built on available capabilities in the region and finding proper solutions for issues related to water, economic, and material resources. Human dignity was another factor His Highness touched upon, saying it was a major link to development. He pointed to the need to find a genuine voice for the region to set priorities and enhance social cohesion, leading to a better, more responsible future. Education, healthcare, and public services, said His Highness, must be available to all, along with establishing inspiring policies to reduce poverty and cement social justice. The theme of this year's forum is timely, as the WANA region is currently under increased strain to provide shelter, water, food, and energy to 1.3 million Syrian refugees. Car bombs and a suicide attack tore through food markets in 2 Iraqi towns north of Baghdad, killing at least 21 people. No group claimed responsibility for today's attacks, but officials blame most of the sectarian violence that has killed nearly 2,000 people since April on insurgents linked to Al-Qaeda's local wing. Officials said 2 car bombs exploded and a suicide bomber in another vehicle detonated his explosives in a food market in a mostly Shiite town in Diyala province, north of the capital. The triple blast left 13 dead and more than 50 wounded among the wreckage of fruit and vegetable stalls. Another car bomb hit a market in the religiously mixed town of Taji, north of Baghdad, killing at least 8 more people. The United States could make a decision as early as this week on whether to arm Syrian rebels. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry put off a Middle East trip to attend meetings on the subject. As fighting continues in Aleppo, there are increasing concerns that the Syrian regime may be gaining the upper hand in the conflict, as government forces recently captured the key town of Qusayr. Hala Dababne has the details.
The Syrian war enters a new phase. After capturing the town of Qusayr, government forces are massing around Aleppo in preparation for an offensive to retake the city. 2 rebel factions, Al-Fatah Division and the army of Al-Muhajirin and Ansar, are battling the government forces in Ming military airport north of Aleppo. A building within the airbase is on fire. Rebels fired a Russian-made wire-guarded missile at a target inside the airport, striking what is said to be a tank. A Syrian opposition group urged all foreign fighters involved in the country's conflict to leave.
The coordination body calls on all non-Syrian parties that are taking part in the fighting in Syria, no matter what party they are fighting beside, to leave the country immediately.
Abdelazem added that the national coordination body would seek United Nations condemnation of foreign fighters' involvement. 35 people wounded during fighting in Qusayr arrived in Tripoli in northern Lebanon. They are among 85 people evacuated over the weekend by the International Red Cross. In the Minia hospital in Tripoli, the wounded were being treated for predominantly limb injuries to the lower half of their bodies. As Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, backed by Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah, may prevail in the more than 2-year-old uprising, Israeli forces patrolled the border along the demilitarized zone between Israel and Syria. It came after renewed tensions in the area last week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatened that Israel is ready to respond to any attack.
We are prepared for any events, and the most basic principle is that whoever threatens to harm us or harms the citizens of Israel will be harmed.
Israel forces have occasionally fired back when gunfire comes into the Israeli-occupied Golan from Syria. The demilitarized zone on the Golan is patrolled by the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, a mission that has kept the Syrian-Israeli war front quiet for 40 years. Hala Dababne for the News at 10.
Thousands of Turkish protesters are still defiant despite a tough warning by Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan over the worst anti-government unrest in years. The demonstrations have unnerved investors who have long viewed Turkey as one of the most stable emerging markets. Mohammed Al-Fuqaha has an update.
The worst anti-government protesters in years show little sign of easing. Thousands of protesters continue to occupy central Istanbul's Taksim Square after Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan warned that his patience may run out. Protesters, many camped out in tents, now control a large area around the square, with approach roads barricaded by masonry, paving stones, and steel rods. Police have withdrawn completely from the area. Water cannon kept hundreds of meters away by the side of the Bosphorus waterway. The unrest has been a big worry for investors who have long viewed Turkey as one of the most stable emerging markets. Fears are mounting that prolonged uncertainty could hit tourism revenues and slow investment in its capital markets. Convening his cabinet, Erdogan criticized speculators after the stock market fell almost 15% during last week's unrest. He said he would choke those who were growing rich off the sweat of the people. What began as a campaign against government plans to develop a park in the corner of the square turned into a show of defiance against Erdogan and his Islamist-rooted AK party. The protesters have been emboldened after police fired tear gas and water cannon to flush out the campaigners 10 days ago. This protester says the demonstrators are fighting their war and does not want the police to fire tear gas. Erdogan has repeatedly dismissed the protesters, but he has clearly been rattled, comparing the unrest with an army attempt 6 years ago to curb his power. Mohammed Al-Fuqaha for the News at 10.
On a very sad note, this morning Jordan lost one of its beloved icons. At the age of 55, Ali Maher passed away after suffering a massive heart attack. Maher was an active member of the cultural scene, an artist, an actor, and the founder of the first animation studio in Jordan, just to mention a few. He left his mark on Jordanian society through his work and as a person. Rest in peace, Ali Baba Maher. Red Bull's triple world champion Sebastian Vettel won the Canadian Grand Prix to capture his first Formula One victory on North American soil and extend his overall lead to 36 points. He made a clean getaway from pole position and led for almost the entire 70 laps. The German cruised to his 29th career win without resistance, taking the checkered flag 14.4 seconds clear of Spain's Fernando Alonso. French Open champion Rafael Nadal celebrated his unprecedented 8th win at Roland Garros with a trip to Disneyland Paris. The player, often dubbed the King of Paris due to his record performances in the French capital, was met with cheers and chants from eager crowds as he displayed his trophy in the shadow of the theme park. Nadal told reporters he was pleased with his win, but had to get back into training mode as Wimbledon is right around the corner. Nadal came to Roland Garros with doubts hanging over his knee and his ability to win yet another title, but came through the grueling tournament unscathed.
To make something like this, you don't have a lot.
And finally, for a quick look at the weather, tonight it will be cool in hilly areas and mild in the rest of the country with clouds and northwesterly winds. Tomorrow a slight rise in temperature is expected, therefore it will be hot with northwesterly moderate winds picking up at times. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a moderate night and hot tomorrow with northerly winds blowing dust at times and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. Jordan marks Army Day and the Great Arab Revolt anniversary. The King tells a delegation of Mediterranean ombudsmen holding a conference in Amman that Jordan will enhance justice, rule of law, transparency, and the integrity system. And Syrian government forces mass around Aleppo after taking the key town of Qusayr. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. Thank you for watching and have a good night.